Very good.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, and welcome to the City of Salem's Human Rights Commission. I'm Angelo Arredondo. I am the chair, and I live in Ward 2. And then just a reminder to say your name before you speak. And yeah, I think we'll do introductions as always. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Waters, and I live in Ward 7, and my pronouns are they and them, and I'll pass it to Kathy.
Hi, my name is Kathy. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a resident of South Salem, and I'll pass it to Kelsey.
Hi all, my name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a resident of Ward 1, and I'm going to pass it to David.
Hi, my name is David Reinhold. I'm a resident of Polk County, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'll pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gretchen Bennett, staff to the commission, and I do live in Ward 8, and my pronouns are she, her. And let's see, Deb.
Hi, I'm Debbie Aguilar. I'm a lieutenant with Salem Police, and I am the liaison between the police department and the Human Rights Commission. And I think Krista was here, and then I saw she got bumped off. I think she was the last one to go. Oh, there she is. I think she's coming back on.
Oh dear, we've lost Krista again. I think that's like the third drop, so I'm not sure. There must be technical difficulties. Oh, Krista's back in the waiting room. This is Gretchen. Krista, we are at the time of welcoming you for your introduction, if you'd like to go ahead.
One second for the interpreter, please. Hi there. Yeah, this is Krista Aguilera, and Ward 4.
Very good. I think that concludes the introductions, Angelo.
All right, Angelo here, and then thank you, everybody. And then Gretchen, before we do public comment, I sent you an article. I think it's the one you're talking about with the bias crime, but I'm not sure if that's the exact one. I sent it to your email.
Very good. Oh, I see. I will forward it to the commission. Thank you.
That was good. Thank you. And then we can continue with you, Gretchen. Public comment. Do you have any tonight?
We do not. I did not receive any. And I don't see anyone in the room to join us.
Okay, thank you. And then I think we can skip the consent calendar because we don't have quorum. Is that correct, Gretchen?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, and then so I guess we can move on to action in our discussion items. We can start with the bias crime update.
So we did not have any bias crimes reported to us this last month. We did have one bias incident that was reported on August 22nd that occurred in Southeast Salem, and it was a dispute between a customer and a store employee. The customer was asked to leave, which they did, but when they went outside, they started discussing the incident with another store employee. That store employee became upset, used anti-LGBTQ slurs, and made a racial comment at the customer who's Black. And then the customer ended up leaving. So no crime was committed, but it was reported to us as a bias incident. And that was all that we had reported to us this month.
Angela here. Thank you, Lieutenant. Any questions? All right, if no questions, I think we can move on to complaints/concerns of discrimination. Gretchen?
Certainly, and I did not receive any, this is Gretchen, I did not receive any reports of complaints this month. I was in a meeting today where someone began to express something that could be appropriate for the Human Rights Commission. And so I mentioned us as a resource, and they were going to talk to the person and encourage them to reach out. But I have received none during the period of time.
Angela here again. Thank you. I guess we can move on to task force and project updates. We're going fast through this meeting today. All right, we can start with awareness. Mike.
Well, hello, everybody. I got my correct computer set up, so I feel more normal and not like being projected from the ceiling. I was unable to attend awareness and LGBTQ at the last minute this month. So please, those who were able to attend, please fill in any gaps, and thank you for continuing the work without me. At awareness, I believe that we are just continuing with our communication plan development. Our last kind of touch point out to our community members was the survey results. So we are, I think, due to kind of shape our next communication out to our constituents. And those of you who are able to attend, can you fill in any gaps on what you might have talked about, or did you end up even meeting?
Like, this is Kathy. We ended up canceling both the awareness task force and the LGBTQIA+. It was only Tricarico and I believe, and we did not want to proceed without more people in the room. So
that is all I have on awareness at this time. I do have a brief update for LGBTQIA when we get there, just about Pride.
And you're here. Thank you, Mike. Equity Ask report.
This is Gretchen. Yes, that's me. And I began a document that might provide a running sort of task tracker or document that we can refer to keep updated on status. And I wanted to invite feedback before I filled in too many of the details. When I started this idea of creating a document, I was actually picturing it more in a spreadsheet with a list of each of the questions and equity asks, and then columns. And then I didn't know if that would be, because the length of the text is so long, I didn't know if you would find that unwieldy. So I did it in this more portrait style, but I wasn't sure. So I wanted to pause and invite feedback on the actual format of the document. I hope you noticed that as an attachment in yesterday's reminder. And so I'll pause there and see if anybody has format questions or feedback for me.
I'm sorry, Gretchen, I didn't see that attachment, so I'm just looking at it now.
Oh, thank you. And I can move on, but then I'll circle back to that question again at the end of this segment to invite others who might want to take a look at it. So I also just wanted to offer a few updates on the progress of the work. One of the items that was recommended in the document is to hire a staff person that's focused on the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the City of Salem specifically and exclusively. And we've been at work on a position description and on the sort of housing of the position, and now it's posted. So you'll notice if you go to cityofsalem.net/jobs, I looked this afternoon and noticed it was the first one on the list if you click, and it closes on September 20th. So I wanted to make you aware of that. It's a limited duration position, which means that it's funded through this fiscal year, which actually kind of leads me to my next update, is that idea, plus there are several others. If you comb through the list of the equity asks, there are several others that would carry a fiscal impact or would have the need for some budgetary authority or approval. We're highlighting all of those and then kind of collecting those to bring forward in the program enhancements process at the city to begin contemplating the possibility for additions to the city's budget document. The budget process begins with the city manager releasing a budget from the manager desk, and goes into the budget committee that has discussion about that, and then that's brought to city council for formal approval. So it can be helpful to bring concepts in for the city manager's consideration in their budget, but of course that's one of the several touch points. Also, budget committee could directly add things, or city council could directly add things. But we're at work in collecting those for consideration for the manager's budget as sort of a point A or a beginning for that. And that could include the extending funding for the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator staff person. That's an example of what could go in there for permanent or for consideration for future budgets. I guess nothing's ever really completely permanent, but another update is one of the things that it suggested in the equity asks was to expand more no or low barrier shelter. And that's something that I've been at work on that would assist people who are unsheltered. We acquired a property on 22nd Avenue Northeast and are in the midst of clarifying the repairs that are necessary to the building to be able to open it as what it would be as a low barrier shelter for people who are experiencing houselessness. And we're also working hard to open another low barrier site, which would be up north at the Catholic Community Services owned property, but managed by Church at the Park. We've welcomed 8 vehicles onto the site in the past week to begin sheltering on property in vehicle. And then we're in the middle of having 30 micro shelters constructed, and they're getting delivered this month to be available there. And that would be a second type of sheltering. We've also committed to supporting improvements along with some private donors to an indoor building on that site. And so there's a building that's going through some renovations and life safety changes to make it appropriate for sheltering. And then we'd be able to welcome people inside as well. And that, what was I going to say? So one of the poignant things about that project, though, is there's already 300 people on the waiting list. And we have 30 micro shelters planned, as well as of yet, not a specific determined number of indoor sites. So it just really speaks to the need. We also just worked on and sent out an agreement to activate the building at the 2640 Portland Road Northeast site. That site is currently a low barrier shelter that's providing services to people outdoors in the micro shelters and in vehicles, but we've just been able to provide funding and provide approval to open the interior. And that building will be able to open October 1st. The staff are in training right now, and then be open through March 31st. We couldn't activate the indoor building earlier because the building doesn't meet the longer term life safety standards to be open longer than 180 days. And so we were limited to the 180 days to keep within the requirements. So we've got progress made on that particular one. So I wanted to, and I've been working at that a lot myself. And so I wanted to share with you about those updates. But I think that concludes what I was going to bring. Yeah, go ahead. I think Krista.
Yeah, we're going to switch. No, it's just the interpreters need to switch, and I think Tracy can't see me. So we're good now. Thanks.
Of course. Very good. So with that, I'll circle back to the document and ask you if you would prefer the document as presented with updates, or if you are imagining something more in Excel with, or if you'd want things grouped maybe by status, like we could do it that way as well. So just curious about your feedback on the reporting document that I'd use each month for this update.
Yeah, Angela here. I would personally prefer one with status, because then we can see, all right, this is what's going on, this is what's not. And so then we can, I think, ask more questions on, oh, why is this thing not moving, and so on, so on. But that's just my opinion.
Of course. Let me ask you a clarifying question. I was reporting on status in bold text next to the item. Is your suggestion that I would organize things and put like maybe by status? So there'd be a section of things things completed, and then things in progress, and then things not yet started. Would that be more the organizing principle?
Yeah, I think that would be, at least for me, more manageable and more, be able to see it better, I guess.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
but again,
good.
that's just my opinion. If anybody else has, suggestions, I welcome them.
I agree with Angelo, but it looks like Kelsey has her hand up.
Thank you, Mike. I also agree with Angela. I think it would be nice to have some sort of progress report or status so that some accountability happens. So I agree. And so yield to redundancy.
Very good. So that will result in things shifting out of categories. So you're conscious of that. It'll go, so the 3 organizing categories will become completed, like in progress, and maybe not yet started, or there might be other phrases, but that's basically, so you'll see things in different categories shelving into those sections. Very good. Kathy, you've got your hand up.
I was just going to say, I think it would be helpful if the status updates could be, if maybe some dates could be added. And I almost think Excel might be a better way to show it, but I'll, because as of right now, the status is listed, but if things change or as things progress, it would be nice to be able to see those different pieces. And I think as time goes on, we'll lose the timing aspect.
Got it. Very good. I've been sent, well, never mind. Dumb question I was about to ask. Okay, very good. Well, I don't have anything else on this one unless others do.
Angela here. Gritcha, I do have a question about the low barrier shelters. Are those going to be open to any gender identity or specific, or how are those going to work?
I think you cut out a little bit. The question that I heard is, are those open to any gender identity? And yes, they are. Did I hear you correctly, or?
Yes, you did.
Very good. Oh, actually, I need to make a clarifying point. One of the sites has a, what's the word? They're leading with women because of the significant lack of shelters for people who identify as female in Salem compared to male, and the safety issues that women are reporting out in the camps. One of the sites has a process where they say that the priority would go to people who are identifying as female, and they can bring a partner, but they're in the lead position. So if there's a conflict or some sort of issue, the female is the person who would be in the lead to be able to stay, and the person who's not female would need to leave should there be some sort of conflict. But it's leading with females as primary, and that's trying to offset there's generally more space for men than women in the Salem area, and so we're trying to offset that. Kelsey, yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Angelo.
No worries, go ahead.
Oh, you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was any discussion as to the no shelter versus low shelter options. What was like the reasoning? Do you know about that?
I wondered, Kelsey, if you could help me understand. The question I heard was, is there discussion of low shelter versus no shelter? And I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, my apologies. About, it seems like there weren't any no barrier options. Is that true?
You know, I think that I might want to defer to the operators of the programs to see if they would see themselves as no barrier versus low barrier. I know there are behavioral expectations at all sites. Many barriers are removed, like the ability to bring a pet is welcome and the ability to have a partner is welcome, and the presence of using substances is acknowledged, and items are able to be stored, but active use on the site is not permitted, for example. So that might be where you get into low barrier versus no barrier right at that moment.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that sounds great. I love that. Thank you so much for that clarification. I appreciate it.
of course, absolutely. Yeah.
Gretchen, this is Mike. One thought that I have just around the leading with women shelter, which I think is very necessary and good to do, is also recognizing there are some non-binary feminine identifying people who, and so I don't know the exact perfect wording for it, but individuals who are non-binary and identify more feminine may seek the protection of a shelter and should be considered as a group that is targeted.
Thank you. I'll provide that feedback to the operator. That's a great point.
Angela here. Thank you, everybody. Any more questions? All right, hearing none, I think we can move on to the equity lenses / chapter 97. And since Tricarico isn't here, do you have anybody else who can provide an update?
I can provide an update, I think. Was anybody else there? Besides Gretchen? This is Mike. I'll provide the update. We met with City Attorney Dan Atchison, who helped us talk through some of the changes that we've been talking about making. And we did not have a quorum at the Equity Lens Chapter 97 work group, so we were unable to, at that time, really deliberate on a recommendation. But we did discuss kind of generally what our recommendation would be, which includes adding housing status as a category to Chapter 97. And then for those who've been on the commission for a while, also addressing in the housing section of Chapter 97, the specific language about sexual orientation and gender identity for residents of duplexes and roommate situations where it's owner occupied. There's an exception that allows for what our group felt was discriminatory practices toward LGBTQIA plus folks in those circumstances. So we did make some progress on, what our eventual recommendation would be, but we didn't have a full group to put forward that recommendation. My understanding from the city attorney was that one of us as individuals could draft it up and bring it to the Human Rights Commission, as long as we're not deliberating on it, in a non-public meeting. So that's an option for us, I think, to just kind of get the ball rolling on it. Did any of that sound accurate, Gretchen, to your memory?
It did. And I think the drafting wouldn't need to be of a level that is like legalese. And I'm sure you didn't mean that, but just to kind of clarify that part a little bit, it would, I think what the product will be that will be imagined to come from this committee to you as the Human Rights Commission would be kind of a document that explains the ideas for the changes and some of the purposes or visions for why those changes would be in place. And then you all could decide if you support that. And then if so, that would go to City Council. And if City Council supports that, they would direct the attorney's office to do the legal component to adapt the code to be legally proper to accomplish the objectives, if that makes any sense. But Mike, I'm sure that's what you meant. That's just building on what you said a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And so the legal language that goes in Chapter 97 really would be a product of the attorney acting on the behest of counsel. So our role, at least at the beginning, would be to make a recommendation about what changes we would like to see. And I don't know, I'm feeling kind of surly, so I'm willing to take a stab at it before the next equity group meets.
I think that would be welcome. It may be smart to check in with Tricarico to confirm they aren't also, but I think that's welcome and that's great. And if any of you were invited to that group, that means I have you on the formal list. If you are thinking that you didn't mean to participate, please do let me know, because when we have your name on the list, you count towards the number we need for quorum. And so if you're actually not meaning to be there, do let me know and I can remove you, and then that can allow that subcommittee to achieve quorum to be able to move it forward.
Angela here, and yeah, I'm a part of that group. That I think it was a Saturday that you guys were meeting, correct? Or when did you guys?
We met on a Friday.
A Friday, yeah. Yeah, that was the one day I actually worked during that time, so I couldn't attend. But I'll make sure to attend future meetings as well.
Very good.
And if there's no more questions, Mike, you're still on the spot with the LGBTQIA plus intersectional rights task force.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we did not meet this month, but we did staff the booth at Pride. Kathy and I did, and thank you very much, Kathy, for being the second person there. It was pretty boring for the first couple hours, so it was really fun to hang out. We got a lot of signups, so Gretchen, I need to find a way to get you those and probably get you your stuff eventually whenever you need it. I will say that doing in-person events is a little bit challenging right now because of COVID. The event, of course, was masked, but people's adherence to masks varies at an outdoor event, and it was an unusual timing anyway. But lots of interest in the commission and what we do, and lots of people thanking us just for being there.
Mike, I'll follow up with you to find a time. I can pick up those items.
Okay, great. If you have a bigger car than mine, that would be good too, because my car, as Kathy saw, my car gets pretty stuffed. It's a little tiny car. Great.
All right, thank you, Mike. Staff updates, Gretchen.
Let's see. I actually don't have any. I couldn't think of any to share this month.
All right, community calendar.
And I'm not finding a lot. I did send out what I was able to find, but not very much.
All right, member remarks and or announcements. Did anybody have a chance to look at the article that was sent to you? I know it was just sent to you, but I mean, Gretchen, did you have any thoughts on it? I know you looked at it before.
You know, I didn't get a chance to read it in a lot of detail. I remember just noting that the Oregon Department of Justice's system has released data, and I thought it would be interesting to try to understand the trends. I think overall hate crime has grown in Oregon, and I thought it could be productive for the commission to understand the trends that we're seeing. And, you know, there's always the hope that there's an ability to overlay what those trends are with what we understand to be effective at addressing those issues. Like, is there anything that can be done at the front end? Thinking back to that student survey and some of the people who said, hey, spend less time supporting us and hearing us and more time stopping it from happening in the first place. I just continue to think about that and the desire to reduce hate and bias incidents and reduce hate and bias crime, and think about what are the evidence-based strategies that we know that could make a difference. And so I thought it would be productive to understand what is the data of what's getting reported, and then try to overlay a little bit of a research project on what we know to be effective at addressing that type of incident. I thought that could be really productive work, but I haven't had time to take it to a next step. But if any of you are inclined that way, I think that could be a good project.
This is Mike, and I had a question about one of the sentences in the article, and I just wondered if you or Debbie maybe had some insight into it. The article kind of says in a quote from the special agent at the Portland field office, they reflect likely both an increase in reporting as well as an increase in incidents. What reason is there for a potential increase in reporting?
So this is just me throwing out some ideas, because clearly I haven't done any kind of official research. But so for us at the police department, I think part of it is an increase in officers understanding and recognizing when they take a report that there's a potential that bias occurred. Even if somebody doesn't necessarily verbalize that, they recognize that it's bias, and then they go forward and they take the report as a bias crime. And then also, you know, there may be the potential that because this kind of bias crimes are now forefront and they're being talked about more, that people feel more comfortable in that, recognizing that it's hopefully going to be taken seriously. So they feel more confident in reporting that. So those are just a couple of things that he's probably alluding to. We know that bias crimes are underreported. We know that there are more that are out there that we don't track. But we're hoping that this increase is just an acknowledgement that we're finally getting some of these reports that before weren't getting reported to us.
I might add to Lieutenant Aguilar's answer, an example of her second point would be the existence of the state's hotline. That might in and of itself generate interest in reporting because they see this hotline system.
Thank you.
Angela here. Thank you. Gretchen, I did have a question that wasn't related to this article, but it's probably not necessarily related to the human rights, you know, our wheelhouse. But I remember hearing a couple of city council meetings about a specific group having an event at the Planned Parenthood, and there was kind of issues of knowing what to do with that situation. Was there any reason given why, you know, more couldn't be done? Because I know there's been arrests involved, but the city couldn't necessarily shut down the event.
That's correct. And I would certainly welcome Lieutenant Aguilar adding to my answer. Generally speaking, there's quite strong protections around the ability of groups to gather in spaces to protest, to express, to share, to talk, to convene. And it can be late in the game before a behavior occurs, which is criminal in nature. And so a preliminary shutdown of an event, I think, is problematic legally. But I might offer to see if Lieutenant Aguilar has any additional information.
Yeah, no, I think you're correct in your assessment that just gathering is not in and itself illegal or unlawful. So we look at the behaviors. So yeah, so it's yeah, I don't know if that necessarily explains what I think your question was, why couldn't we just not allow anybody out there to protest or be there? And that would be the answer.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that was my question because if I was just wondering, because if there was already, previous arrests and there's history there of, the protests being bad or getting into a bad situation, why couldn't that be the case? But I think I understand why. Thank you.
I'm told that for years prior to the recent history, there's been peaceful gatherings at the site. And so one of the challenges with what you just said, in addition to just, we can't assume that past behavior will be automatically repeated. The other barrier is, well, how long do you define history? I understand there'd been previous peaceful gatherings if you go back far enough.
Thank you. Any more questions from any commissioners, anybody? All right, if that's it, I think I thank you for coming, and I think it's released. But if there's nothing, this means adjourned. Thank you.